Hi, everyone. We're just getting started here. Happy new moon in Taurus. We are we're meeting live today on the Taurus new moon, and I know it's a different time than we usually meet. It looks like somebody's here, but I know this is a different time for us. It's the Taurus new moon today. I'm Shannon Port from Art of the Feminine, and we're going to do a Taurus new moon activation, but we're really going to just talk about what's happening. We're going to look at the planets and look at the transits and the traditional astrological events that are taking place at the Taurus new moon, and then we're going to talk some esoteric wisdom. We're going to look at the metaphysical and esoteric wisdom around these events, and talk a little bit about that because it's really important. We're in a time of great change on the planet. There's a lot happening right now. Oh, yay. Okay, so some people are here. Good to see you. There's a lot happening right now. There's a lot going on. There's big changes taking place in our world, and most of us can feel it. I will just ask you if you guys can hear me. Oh, Taurus Queen. I am a Taurus. I am definitely a Taurus. And so happy birthday to all the Taurus out there. But anyway, if you can hear me, can somebody just let me know? I'm sure you can, or you would have said something. So we're gonna look specifically at the implications of Uranus in Taurus for the next 7 years. We have, and we're going to talk about it on an esoteric level. So we're not just going to pull out the traditional view through the astrological archetypes, but we're going to take it even a step further. We're going to go multidimensional, interstellar. We're going to go interstellar on it. Okay, so, thank you. Thank you. So you guys can hear me. Wonderful. So let's see here. We also have Jupiter retrograde right now. We have Saturn and Pluto retrograde. I would be curious to hear how you guys are feeling that. It just started, but I have heard from just about everyone that people are really experiencing these planets starting to retrograde, and it's all really it's all kind of a wind up for the January 2020 conjunction of Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn. And I think I want to do a video about that in the next week and just start to look at those things that we're preparing for in the next year. And so why don't we start with we'll start with the basics. So we have the new moon in Taurus. It's at 14 degrees. The sun and the moon are both at 14 degrees. 14 degrees is the archetype of temperance, art, alchemy. In the archetypes, 14 represents it's active alchemy. It is the actual mixing of the substances of the light and the dark, of spirit and matter. And so the new moon is taking place at 14 degrees, right there with the sun in Taurus. We're going to talk a lot about Taurus and what the true correspondence is for Taurus at this time and why it's huge that Uranus is in Taurus. It's I think I'm just starting to feel how big it is. But we have the sun and moon in Taurus. We also have Uranus in Taurus at 3 degrees. So we have Pluto and Saturn conjunct the South Node, both retrograde in Capricorn. Pluto and Saturn retrograde in Capricorn in 2019, before the lead into the 2020 conjunction, is really, and they're in the square with Eris in Aries. Eris, Venus, and Mercury are all in Aries. We have Venus at 17 degrees Aries. We have Mercury at 26 degrees Aries and Eris at 23. So we have a square within those two cardinal signs between Venus, Mercury, and Eris, and Pluto and Saturn. So we have Pluto and Saturn are the way, and I've been doing a lot about writing about this, and I'll probably bring it in another, in its own video, but it's about the way I am feeling it. It's transmuting lust. And there's many different reasons why it comes down to lust, but we're actually, it's going to tie in with Taurus, because Taurus rules the earth consciousness, and it rules sensuality, and it rules the material world. It rules the elemental forces. It rules the admixture of the lower carnal with the higher pulsation of spirit. And I did a writing for this new moon. So if you go to artofthefeminine.com or Art of the Feminine on Facebook, I wrote a lot about that. And so Taurus represents Taurus represents, it can represent our higher state, or it can represent our lower state. So with Saturn and Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, Capricorn rules, is another earth sign. It rules how we manifest. It rules how and why we bring things into being. And I have something else I want to talk about once we get through this. Oh, I'm excited. I want to talk about Game of Thrones, because I'm watching Game of Thrones right now. And there were so many correspondences that it's unbelievable what is packed into that series. And so we'll talk about this after we go through the planetary transits. So in Capricorn right now, we're really reworking that sign. It's all about how and why we manifest. And as of right now, in this, I mean, there's two conflicting consciousnesses that are trying to merge and that are trying to reconcile with one another. There's the creation for pure, for power, for pure pleasure, for control of others, and to tie ourselves into a more dense reality of the physical world and the carnal appetites. Now, this isn't to put down our carnal desires. The desire force specifically is ruled by Venus. Venus rules Taurus. Venus governs desire, and so does Mars. Mars is in Gemini, in the sign of the lovers, and so Mars is at 23 degrees Gemini, opposing Jupiter. Jupiter is at 23 degrees Sagittarius, and so Mars is at 22, but that's a pretty tight opposition. These are both signs of alchemy as well. Sagittarius is temperance, it's key 14, and Gemini is the lovers. So we have Mars opposing Jupiter, which is giving this new moon a huge blast of energy, both from alchemical signs. So back to the carnal desires. Capricorn and its shadow can rule how we are selfish, and it rules the shadow side of the patriarchy. And so right now we're doing our best to try to rework how we manifest, because our manifesting, when we manifest only through the carnal, which doesn't really care much about the spirit. It just cares about sensual pleasures. So it doesn't, what truthfully it overlooks is heart consciousness. Heart consciousness is very connected to Taurus and the planet Venus, and the awakening, and the pentagram, which is the awakening of spirit governing over matter, over the elementals, the lower elementals. And so right now we're going to be forced to look at that, because it's the end of the cycle. And so now is a time when we are not going to really have a choice. And so that's what I want to talk about in this video. I actually made a whole list of things of how we can stay present during this time, because as Uranus moves through Taurus for the next 7 years, we are going to see so much change on the planet. Uranus is going to bring in the higher cosmic light and radiance and wisdom, and it's in the sign of Venus. When a planet enters a sign, especially a sign that it's not ruled by, it comes under the jurisdiction of that sign. So it affects that sign. But right now, Venus is working with Uranus, because Uranus is going to transit the sign of Taurus ruled by Venus. And so everything having to do with Taurus is going to touch Uranus. And we're going to see we're going to see how those two dance together. And so we'll just look a little bit more at the planets before we go more into the alchemy. Um, all right. Cancer, North Node, Neptune in Pisces. We've talked a lot about that. Neptune is squaring Jupiter and will continue to do so as Jupiter retrogrades. And I think that's it. I think that's it. I think we're going to talk a lot about what we're going to just really go into to the metaphysical wisdom now. I'm just going to take a peek here and see, does Lilith moving into Pisces affect this new moon? Oh, yeah, well, absolutely. And Neptune is in Pisces as well. And Lilith in Pisces is really about spiritual power. When Lilith goes into Pisces, Lilith is all about, when she's in Scorpio, she kind of is in the underworld. But Lilith in Pisces is about it's about divine union and spiritual love, and it's about going into the subconscious mind and really making contact with the solar force. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, all right. I'm just going to scan this really quick because, oh, it's so nice to see you guys. Oh, hi from Italy. Nice to see you. Okay, so Taurus, let's talk about the correspondences with Taurus. Taurus governs our body. It governs our physicality, and right now our body, and this is what I'm going to be teaching light body yoga June 7th, but it's our body that is alchemizing and evolving. And so Uranus and Taurus is really going to be about the activation of our body of light, which is our higher consciousness body, or our higher consciousness vehicle. um and Taurus really governs that alchemy. Taurus is May is the fifth month, so five already is showing us that it corresponds to Taurus. Venus governs the transits of the Venus transits are the pentagram, and so Venus transiting, making the geometry of the pentagram, is pointing to the sign of Taurus and the five elementals and spiritualizing those forces. And so that's what we're doing. What we're really doing is alchemizing our mind and our heart and bringing humanity into a greater heart consciousness, because Venus rules the heart. So or Taurus is opposite Scorpio. So Scorpio rules power, and it rules sensuality and power. Or Scorpio, yeah, Scorpio rules sexuality and power, but Taurus rules sexuality in our physical presence, and it also governs lust. It governs our desire force, how we interact and interface with the elements and the physical world. So when we have Uranus and Taurus, the focus is really, and opposing Scorpio, the focus is going to really come into how we evolve the admixture that we live in. Right now, we live in a lower carnal reality of consciousness, where our perception of the physical world is off. It's a perception that we created when we fell in consciousness. The way we see people, the way we see bodies, the way we see each other is off. We don't see the truth, and we don't see spirit, and that's what this is all about. I'm just going to ask you right now. I feel like this is a video where I really want to focus on some questions. So if anybody has any questions around this right now, please feel free to ask, because I want to encourage the conversation. And really see how it's coming in from the listeners, and see what alchemy is taking place just in the listening. So we'll talk about the alchemical wedding. The alchemical wedding is the marriage of spirit and matter. Within our body, we have what's known as the lesser mysteries, and we have the marriage of our own inner masculine and feminine. We are merging the energies of our consciousness with our subconsciousness to open our collective consciousness in our heart, so that we have the potential to create our reality from a much, much higher and informed state of perception. Our perception then becomes, right now in perception, our perception changes. It changes from day to day. I'm going to give an example. So when you have a perception about something and you feel really strongly about it, you can feel locked into an emotional body trigger. You can feel really like, this is it, this is how I feel right now, and this is the reality. And your perception will spin the elements to make that very real and solid for you. If you experience a shift in perception, if you experience a shift in that perception, the world around you will change. And I'm saying this, I've said this before in other videos, because just take a moment and recall a time when you were really upset with somebody, or you thought you were having a bad day, or you thought you couldn't find something and the day was ruined, or you thought that somebody was out to hurt you or betray you, and you created a whole story around that, and then you lived in that reality either for the moment or for the day or for many days. When we create that reality through our feeling force, and this is very connected to Taurus, we experience that reality and we feel like it is the truth. We make that the truth for ourselves. But if it changes, we experience a different world, and it can be instantaneously. It can be instantaneously. Sometimes it takes a while for outer events and matter to catch up to us. But just the shift in our feelings and our perception alone are enough to allow the energy of the ether, of the higher ether, to come in and work with the elemental forces. And it happens through the heart, because love is the way we do it. I mean, when we talk about divine love, we're talking about the ability to create, because in that moment, you've activated divine love. Divine love is really the power to shift our reality and to call forth the reality that is reality with a capital R. It's not it's the reality of spirit, which is unchanging. Again, we're starting to get on the path of the esoteric. I'm just going to take a quick peek right now. Is right with people instead of what's wrong, looking at spirit. Oh, really nice. Okay. Yes. All right. We'll get into that. And spirit of grandfather, patriarchal wall from our father's father. There's definitely a blood lineage, and Taurus is connected to that. Capricorn is connected to that. Capricorn rules our blood lineage. We're reworking our blood lineage. You guys, I just want to say, I have to just stop right now. I have so many things that I want to talk about in these videos. So much new. I have notebooks. I'm just going to show you a notebook. I have these Clairefontaine notebooks, and I have about 10 of them that I've recently filled, packed, and I write by hand with just the stream of wisdom that's coming for this time, and that's just coming through my channel. But it's huge. We are getting ready to begin. I mean, the change that's coming is that we're becoming the human beings that we're meant to be. And it's not going to be easy. Like, I just want to say, it's not going to be easy, because it doesn't matter how advanced you are or how spiritual you are or how positive vibes you are. Our alchemy, oh, and I can't wait to talk about Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones really corresponds to this. Our alchemy requires us to face everything we fear. So we can think we know what we fear. We fear other people. So starting a little bit with that question is, we fear other people. We don't realize it, but every time we see somebody or come up to somebody, we think of how much we love them or like them. And the subconscious mind below us is always preparing the fears. Why something's not right, or even you might not even get a hit of it. It might be waiting for a later date, but there's always a lower level of the subconscious mind where the wound is, that's preparing an attack. It's a psychic attack, or an attack from within on another person, that we're all doing it to everybody all the time. That is what we're clearing right now. So let's just take a moment and talk about how we can do that. how we can see people for the spirit. Okay, so first of all, a lot of the identity politics on the planet are just coming through the lower forces that are trying to separate people. Um, it's important that we know who we are. It's important. It's so important that we're not monocultural. We don't want to be the same. We don't want everyone to be the same. We don't want everyone to have the same beliefs. We don't want it to be. We love different cultures, different countries, different ways of being, different religious beliefs. It's really beautiful to have that because the human race is like a big body. All of humanity is one body. I talk about this a lot in some of the other work that I teach. And the body has different organs and it has different functions. Not everyone is a brain cell or a heart cell or a liver cell. There's different organs that make up this body that have different energetic codes to add to the whole. So we're meant to gravitate towards what we love and what really, really activates us and the codes that we have. We're meant to be with our people, with our tribe, but we're meant to have that all working in a harmonious flow with the whole. That's when diversity is honoring unity and unity is honoring diversity. What's happened is that there's different forces. So we have the dark force and we have the light force. We live in polarity. We live in the valley of tears, in the valley of death. That's why we have dying and aging and all in death and suffering in this dimension because we live in the dimension of death. And that is what we're doing. We're transcending death. We're resurrecting and coming into our eternal bodies which is the light body, which is what I teach in light body yoga, which is the vehicle of consciousness that opens up the whole, not just our kingdom, but all of the kingdoms. And so that is what Uranus and Taurus is about. That is the alchemical wedding of spirit and matter. So how we can begin to we have to kind of unplug from identity politics. It's fascinating to watch. It's fascinating, but what happens is the dark forces are interdimensional and they're psychic. They work through our brain. They work through the human brain, which is very connected a lot to Capricorn, and they work through the lower elemental forces, which is connected to Taurus. Taurus rules the elements as they bind us into matter, but it also rules the alchemical marriage as we blossom into the pentagram, the five, which represents the spiritualized human being and the consciousness of that reality. So we have to be true to who we are. It doesn't matter. A lot of there's pain and suffering for everybody, and that's what I want to point out when I talk about Game of Thrones. It doesn't matter if you're an elite. It doesn't matter if you're a peasant. It doesn't matter if you're a knight. It doesn't matter if you're in a whorehouse. It doesn't matter if you're highborn. It doesn't matter if you are, nobody. We all have to face the elemental forces in this world, and by facing them, we neutralize them. So when we're looking at another human being, we're all stuck on this thing of judgment that we have to judge them. Our inner ego tells us you better judge them or you will be attacked. If you don't judge other people, if you don't see what's wrong with them, if you don't see how they're going to eventually get you or how they're going to turn on you or how this party is going to take over this party or how this is going to do this, if you don't know that, you're going to lose your divinity, which could not be further from the truth. We are in this game. And we're seeking the throne. We have the throne of the pineal gland. We have the throne of the heart. We have the throne of the solar plexus. We have these levels of intelligence, the Trinity that lives within us. And we're really seeking to know ourselves through that. In order to enter the inner chamber where this alchemy takes place, we have to have one thing for certain. We've reversed it. We think that we have to have judgment to enter into it. We think we have to cast our judgment out upon others so we know the truth and then we can enter in. But it's the exact opposite. We need to see the truth in our brothers and sisters on the planet in order to open that gate. If we spend our time in judgment and constantly looking out at what's wrong, we might get some earth knowledge, we might have some understanding of what's happening in this war, but the gates will never open to us. The gates open to us when we have the last judgment of our own consciousness, the last judgment of Pluto. Pluto governs the last judgment. In the archetypes, Pluto is key 20 and it's judgment. When we have that last judgment, that means we say no to judgment. We're done. We're done judging other people. We'd rather have the kingdom of light within us. We'd rather have brotherhood and sisterhood. We'd rather put that down and take up a higher sword. There's higher work to be done. This dimension will always be locked in polarity. It doesn't want to get out. It's always going to be here for future generations, for future dispensations and cycles of humanity and evolution. There will always be a third dimension. There's always going to be an earth plane for on this level for people to come to that want to learn the wisdom of this. But right now we're in the ascending cycle, and so we want to see each other for truth and for beauty. And so let me just think for a second. Honor diversity. And don't spend too much time fighting about it. Like, be who you are and find your people and celebrate it and build up your power and go out into the world and give it out. Because the truth is, the more you do that, the more you have power. And the more, if somebody really so if somebody really bothers you or somebody does really do you wrong, just deal with it. Deal with it from the heart and deal with it from the higher place where you see it and say, it's not wise for me to go into that space right now, but I see that space as just another dimension of my own mind, because every single person in being and every multidimensional force, dark, light, you name it, is part of this collective consciousness. And so without the understanding of that, we've separated ourselves from our own dark. When we claim our dark, which is what everybody's talking about right now, we understand that we are the dark that we see. And then it loses its power. It begins to be dismantled. It's no longer a threat. Okay. Oh, there's so much. All right. So I'm just going to talk about a couple of forgiveness, reconciliation. Absolutely. Common denominator makes grace possible. Oh, favorite word, grace. Absolutely. We are not equal. We are unique cosmic. Exactly. We're unique. So by equal, we are unique. Each one of us carries a divine code, but that code, it's like a cell of one body. That code only has meaning when it's in the body. If you separate yourself and take your cell outside your own body, which is what we do mentally when we split from creation, that code that we've come to sound becomes meaningless, because it's only meaningless within the body. And yes, there are warriors. Yes, there are truth tellers. It's all relevant and vital. But as long as you can walk that path and keep your own inner chamber open, and that is initiation. That's what we learn in a hard and brutal way, because many of us, as we're doing deep work for the planet, we're having to understand what judgment is. That is something that only the Divine Mother can work with each individual on that level. Because as you really, truly, knowing something by words is different than embodying it. When you really start to embodiment, that's what initiation is. So much today is about people wanting to just keep everything great, keeping everything wonderful, be very prosperous. These are all wonderful things. Have life go well, have the business go well, have the relationships go well, have everything perfect. That's absolutely the direction that we're going in. But the reality is that within our subconscious mind, we hold things that before we came in, this is going pretty far out. We agreed to let those things rise up, trigger the lower elementals so that we can alchemize it. We transmute it. And that's what Pluto and Saturn retrograde in Capricorn is all about, that we're transmuting lust, because the core It's not an emotion. That frequency that takes us out of our power is lust. It keeps drawing us down. It's not desire. Lust is different. It draws us down and away from the heart. We need to learn how to use it, but it makes us misunderstand the world. Zero balance point. Yes. And 0 point is 0 point is the inner chamber. The inner chamber, that's the grail. I mean, that's really what we're going to, is 0 point. Mercy triumphs over judgment. Okay, so on the tree of life, yeah, there's a pillar of mercy and a pillar of judgment. And so this is Taurus, because the Empress is key 3. She's Venus. She governs Taurus. 3 is the 3 pillars on the pillar of life. Pillar of life, we have severity, we have mercy. So judgment is severity and mercy is the other pillar. In the middle path is where that balancing happens. The middle path is the inner chamber. These things correspond to alchemy. We'll talk a little bit about this, because this is the alchemical marriage of spirit and matter. And so alchemy, salt, sulfur, Mercury, Aleph, Mem, Shin. These forces, these triple forces of alchemy, Venus governs over them: air, fire, and water. So the central pillar is air, which means, that's why breath is the high teaching of breath. Speaking is the high teaching of all universally connected wisdom. That we have to breathe. I mean, our breath determines our connection between our heart and the earth. And the heart and the earth are really, they're spelled with the same letters that are an anagram of each other. Our heart, we are connected to the heart of the earth. The core nucleus of the earth's heart is in our heart, and our heart is in the earth heart. So we have to breathe, and we have to open our perception. So Taurus activates the Hierophant. Taurus is the archetype of the Hierophant. The Hierophant is the Hebrew letter Vav. Vav represents the nail. The nail, so we're going into the esoteric, and the nail, the Hebrew letter Vav, connects spirit and matter, and that happens in the sign of Taurus. Taurus activates, first of all, our throat. It activates our word. Taurus governs the throat. Venus governs the throat. And it activates our inner hearing. So our inner hearing is our inner teacher. It's our own inner Hierophant. That is the access to our own inner higher self, our own guardian angel. It's our own inner grail. Once we have that connection, that access, we have everything about our world will begin to change. There's different levels of it and different purities of it. Like, even before we get that, we all have wisdom. We have intuition. It rises up. But Taurus, when we balance the elements, which is represented by the pentagram is the 5, and 5 is represented by the 5 fingers. The tip of the pentagram, which represents the ether or the Akash, represents spirit governing over the elemental forces, and this is Taurus, and this is awakening the inner hearing. You have romantic relationships, wonderful. Yes, and spirit does activate the vertical feed. Oh, there's so much. There's so much. So I want to start really talking more about the esoteric wisdom in these calls, because there's so much. I can just feel it. It's like it's so alive right now. And I want to ask you guys to let me know how you're feeling right now. Uranus is okay. So Taurus is the Hierophant. We just said that, Vav. Venus rules Taurus. We have the Empress, which is Dalet, the door, the Hebrew letter Dalet. And we have one of the mother letters, Aleph, is the Hebrew letter of Uranus. So we have the mother letter Aleph, the life breath, in which is wisdom on the tree of life. Uranus is the Sephirot Hokmah, which governs the zodiac and which governs wisdom. So right now we have the ruler of the zodiac and we have the ruler of wisdom. It's Sophia Akma. Oh, Hokama. Sorry, it's Sophia. So Sophia Akamoth is another frequency. So Sophia Hokama governs wisdom in the zodiac. Is now in the sign of Taurus, doing alchemy with the five elements and with Venus. If there's one thing to take with you from this, it's that that's happening right now. And the North Node is going to conjunct Uranus. I wrote down the date, but I don't have it with me. Maybe someone can look it up and tell me. The North Node is going to conjunct Uranus in the sign of Taurus at 18 degrees in the next, I think it's in 2 years maybe, but that's going to be huge. It's going to be huge because the Node represents our true north, our collective consciousness. It will be in the sign of Taurus, conjunct Uranus, and it's a very very big thing in my downloads. That's a big one. All right, jigsaw puzzle with a hammer. It is, yeah. Yeah. And everybody, you have to download your own truth. That's the message I wanted. So Uranus encourage us to be ourself. Be yourself. Follow your own path. If there's things you want to learn, go to them. Be in groups. Having support is really important too. But be yourself and be wise, and don't let anyone. It's not about fighting. It's not about proving I'm myself. You can't do anything to take me out of it. I'm this, I'm that. You don't even have to tell anyone who you are. Just be who you are. Nobody can take you down. Nobody's opinion of you can change it if you don't accept it. And don't even judge the people who take you down, because we've talked about that in other videos. When people are trolling, well, when people are projecting and attacking, they're not in their higher consciousness anyway. So if you want to do alchemy, just do alchemy with it. Don't take it as an arrow to the heart. Take it as a chance to stand up and alchemize. All right. So this is going to change wealth. It's going to change love, and it's going to change unity. So relationships. Let me see if I want to say a couple words on relationships. We'll really go into that when we get to the Gemini new moon, because Gemini is the lovers, and we're going to talk about relationships. Relationships are so important, because you can sit in a cave your whole life and you can come into bliss. But if you push other people away, when you come face to face with another, you're really coming face to face with yourself. There's all kinds of relationships: love relationships, work relationships, spiritual community relationships, country relationships, neighborhood relationships, family relationships. Every relationship is an opportunity to know who you really are, just in that moment. And it's up to you. It's not up to the other person. You have everything you need, and choose the relationships that you're really drawn to. That means there's work in them. There's good work in them. Friendships, love relationships can be a fast track. Love relationships. You don't have to be in a love relationship, and there's times to do alchemy in love. There's times to take space, but love relationships will shine a light on your greatest fears. Love relationships, especially the deeper they are, when there's really love there, are going to shine a light on the things that we hide from ourselves. We hide things so brilliantly from ourselves. We hide the very things we need, and the things that we need show up in relationships, and they show up as those things that we think we are absolutely being attacked by. Now, if something, and I've said this many times, if something shows up in a relationship and it's harmful or terrible, that means that we're meant to do alchemy by taking care of it, by being wise, and by stepping away if we have to. Just quietly do it, make your peace, and move on. Sometimes relationships come to show us that we're done with that frequency, and that's fine. But many times we leave relationships prematurely. I see it all the time. And we just attract the next relationship. And when we're on that downward spiral, meaning the universe is sending something to work with, no, thank you, not today. Sends it to us again, no, thank you, not today. I don't want to see it, not going to see it. Send it to us again, no, thank you, not going to see it today. It gets harder and harder. And that's why looking at your patterns can give you everything you need to know. Why did I keep attracting this? Oh, ready. Done. Accept it. Done. The universe will usually give you someone else that holds the same pattern, but has the potential of really going into the light, and then you get to walk through that door. Um, yeah, it's oh, nice comment, Jay. It's a wellspring, exactly. When it really opens up, when the well, it's a wells, the heart is a spring, and that is a correspondence to the heart. It's an endless spring. Our wealth, our creativity, our creative imagination, all of it, our divine love is a wellspring. If you tap that, you will be taken care of. Now, we're still riding through some of this. So sometimes the deeper you go and the closer you get to the throne, the harder and more intense things might come at you, but they're just coming at you so that you get the opportunity to step up and be in your power, to be who you really are. The more you're able to show up and do that, the more those foes turned into your allies. This is a mantra I've been using, and I love it. Oh my God, I love this mantra. All are my allies. All are my allies. All are my allies. And sometimes we get afraid of that, like, oh, I can't pretend like these people are my allies, they're bad, or I can't believe these people are my allies, they're awful, they're satanic, they're evil. Even the dark bows to the true light. So the dark is working with the dark. In alchemy, the dark works with the light. So even the darkest forces, when you hold your true grail awake inside you, it has to bow to you. Even the dark forces will come to assist you. It's not that we're calling on them, so you have to understand this is all in the creative process. Something that seems very negative can become hugely an assisting force to you, and then you just let it go, because dark is not going to go away altogether. It's we are transcending the dark within us, but the dark forces are meant to be here, and the people are being used by the dark. So we have spiritual souls being used by the dark. That's why we get attack, racism, all the isms. And but that's also where we get the huge mistaken politic of wanting to be so identified with this identity politics and social voyeurism that really we're blocked from divine love. Divine love can't flow there. We trick ourselves into thinking that if you fight it hard enough, you're going to somehow win. That takes you deeper into it, and then you eventually become the very thing you're fighting. There's a lot more we can say about it. So obviously, we could say the opposite of that, but I'm speaking it on a level that there's hopefully another stream of wisdom coming in. So, all right, just going to go through this really quick. Okay, Aleph, Vav, we talked about that. The Empress, the Fool. We're here to master the forces. So that wellspring that you just mentioned, that's the mastering of the forces. So during this time right now, it's really important that you tell yourself now that you're going to be able to ride it out like a true warrior of light, like a true warrior of love. Whatever comes in these next 7 years, know who you are and just be with it. Seek out your friends, but when times are hard, don't shy away from it. If you need to process it, if you need to grieve, if you need to feel like, oh my God, I'm a victim right now, and go through that whole thing, do it. But then step up, step right back up, and claim your power, and claim your light, and claim your ability to connect with the world. There are, if anything, the way the dark is won in this reality is disconnecting us from each other and not having us realize that we're one human body. All of the mythology and all, it's leading to a higher realization. So okay, let's talk about I'm just going to say one thing really quick. Let me see what time it is. Ooh, it's going pretty quick. So I wanted to just talk about, I've had an experience before. I've met many different experiences, but I want to share this right now because it has to do with the physical world. I know, I've shared this on other videos, but I know that this world is much more than what we see in our perception. I've experienced it all the time. I still get caught up in the traps of feeling like overwhelmed or feeling like the forces are too high today. but I will not back down from it because I know I'm taking some pretty deeper, the more subtle initiations now to really, really overcome it and know it and understand it. Integrate is the word. But I've had an experience, and I've talked to you about this before, but where I was in a deep period of transition. I was meditating for about a week. I have. I've always worked with mantra, and I had taken a week to just sit inside my room and chant. And I had it because it's devotional for me. And I'm Venus ruled. I'm a Taurus. I love vocalizing and the music, and have had really, really powerful experiences merging through this practice. And so it was after about a week. It was in 2008. It was in the month of August, a very, very alchemical month. And I walked outside in the afternoon onto my deck. And, I had been in one room pretty much for an entire week. And I looked up at the sun and I felt my heart open. And as I looked up, I felt like a merge with the sun. And I mean, my heart opened, and in that moment, I saw the rays of the sun going into everything. And there was some structures around me. There were some big trees. There was a lot of foliage. There was a lot of life. A lot of plants and flowers around me. But there was also some dense buildings. And I heard the frequency of it. First of all, I saw it as a dance. I saw the sunlight dancing, and I saw that um, everything merged into it and became it. Everything was that light. I mean, everything just disappeared. It wasn't a blackout. It wasn't a vision. It was in 3D, present, tangible, feeling. It wasn't my inner eye. It was my earth eyes. And I saw it, and I went into it was a revelation, and I just kept breathing, and I was like, how long is this going to last? I see it. I heard it. It was music. And the most important thing I want to say is that I knew that it was love. And I can't explain how I knew. This is all way beyond words. I've written about it in a much, much more poetic way in another place that I'm going to share at a later time. Um, but I knew that I'm living in a sea of love. And the message of this was that, and what was communicated, it all came in that humanity doesn't, we really don't know what we are. We are really locked out, but through our own choice. We forgot that we made this decision. We wanted to go carnal, we wanted to go lusty. We forgot that we made this decision, and we forgot about it. And we are actually, that is the spirit of Uranus behind the elementals of Taurus. That's the alchemical marriage of spirit and matter. And my most the biggest thought I remember having, it was one thought, was how come humanity doesn't know? I heard myself say, if we knew, we would live in a different way. If we knew what we are and what we live in, we would live in a different way. And so that is really, that's an alchemical marriage. And then I got to come back in and continue my work, which has been deep relationship alchemy, deep alchemy as a mother, deep alchemy on many different levels. And it's been a long process, but it's I just sharing my experience that awakening comes to us as we gather our own wisdom. We see why we went through the things we did. It would be nice to awaken, and I see people awakening, and yet once you can see it, once you've been through certain things, you can see, you get to be privy to look at others, and you understand that they're still going to be working with certain things, and there's still little secrets that haven't come in yet, but when they do, they'll be ready for them. So humanity is going through this process. We're all going through it. This is what Uranus and Taurus is about. We need to hold that vision of who we really are, be as kind, forgiving, and loving to others. It doesn't mean to abandon your own power, it means to claim it. But power isn't aggressive, it's not mean spirited. It's not, the one thing I want to say is that we have to understand our own judgment. And this is one of the places that I'm working very, very powerfully right now. And it's huge. I can feel it in my whole body. It's like we have to understand what happens in our subconscious mind. We carry these codes, and we also carry the dark. And depending on what you came in to do, we each have our own mission. You carry different things. I know what mine is, and it was not a light one. So we carry a certain amount of negativity. Our goal is to, in whatever special way our soul is, to alchemize that and neutralize it, bring it back into the light, keep the dark working for us without having to go into it. That's what we do every single time we refuse to attack. We alchemize our own inner dark. We could go on about. The moon is in Taurus. The moon is the high priestess. She represents that potency of working with the above and the below. The moon works with the higher forces and the lower forces, and she makes things solid. She solidifies things. So the moon is in Taurus. The moon is exalted in Taurus. Uranus is in Taurus. We have this energy is going to be on for a very long time. What did I want to say? Do I have time to talk about Game of Thrones? I'll just say this in a couple minutes. Maybe I'll talk about it more in the next video. I was a latecomer to Game of Thrones. Just started watching it because it's so hard for me to watch violence and all the perversions of just like abusive sexuality. I don't care what people are doing sexually, but abusive sexuality and violent sexuality and hurtful sexuality. I really try to keep my inner slate clean and not come into contact with it. But I decided to watch it. I'm watching it with my son, who laughs at me because I have to have my blocker pillow when I'm watching it. It took a while. We're on season 7. It took me a while to get through to where I could even look with the violence. It's so brutal. It's the worst. It's the worst violence and sex and all of it I've ever seen. And I'm going to talk more about this next video. I've finally made it through that, and it didn't desensitize me. I'm not desensitized to abuse, to killing, to all of that. In fact, it took me to a higher level of seeing the archetypal wisdom. And it really pointed out that our body is not who we are. We're meant to treat the body sacred, obviously, but this is showing, Game of Thrones shows humanity, what we've done. It's our history. This is what human beings in the carnal state have done. It shows that even every evil character has a nobility inside. It's very good about showing that even the darkest of the dark has its human moments where you see the light. It also shows us, and this is the huge one, it doesn't matter if we're a queen. It doesn't matter if we're highborn. It doesn't matter if we're Lord Commander of this or that. It doesn't matter if we're a princess. It doesn't matter if we're young and youthful and we have the whole life ahead of us and everybody wants to be our suitor and everybody wants to marry us. Or if we're the older, man or woman that is no longer in that physical human state. Everybody is doing the same alchemy. It's all an illusion. We are all faced with overcoming the challenges of this fallen consciousness. And the way I see it now, that's what that's about. And it really has helped me to see that, oh, wow, I know this, but like, we're not the body. We're the consciousness. And when we understand that, so I'm like a couple episodes into season 7, I don't know what's coming, but when we understand that we are all the king, we are all the queen, we are all the princess, we're all of it. And I'm just gonna, do you think are necessary to make it a capitalist system in order for humanity to grow beyond greed? Okay, great. Okay, what takes hold? Okay, I have to finish before an hour. This just doesn't go through, but it looks like we're there anyway. So what changes? This awakening has to take place. You have to find divine love within you. The capitalist system and all of that, we'll talk more. I'm going to do a video, a specific dedicated video to Pluto and Saturn retrograde in Capricorn leading up to the 220. And I might do that this week, where we talk about how we're going to shift that, because there is a human way and there is an awakened way to do it. And so we're going to kind of talk about both. Right now, we're all mixing both of them. Yeah, it's like playing tarot. Exactly. I love it. I have to tell you, I mean, like, it's so brilliant. And I looked at the guy and I see it. And yes, what's so funny, I just want to leave you guys with this, is me saying that because we are programmed, and all of this is programming. More thoughts on that next time though. We are programmed. Hollywood is used to program us, but once you go past the program, it's harmless. In fact, it's entertainment. And as someone who's done a lot of Shakespeare, done a lot of Greek tragedy, like, I understand that these are deep, deep archetypal journeys that we're on, and they are profound. But the main thing I wanted to say is that everybody has challenges. We judge it. We compare ourselves to others, and we think so and so has it so good. So and so has it. We all have challenges, and I know I work with many very privileged people, and I work with many people who would consider themselves to be struggling and still trying to get to a certain place. The challenges really are the same. Some people are blessed with love in their life. Some people are blessed with money in their life. It's funny how it seems like everybody has their gifts and their areas that they're trying to still build up. And so in that way, we can bless each other. And I think that's it. Are there any last questions? I think I'm going to close out and hope to do another video soon. Light Body Yoga is coming in June 2007. It's going to be really, really powerful. It's a 7-week course. It's going to be the Solar Revolution, building the inner temple of light. It's a level 3 training, but anybody can do it. It doesn't matter if you've done 1 and 2. So much beauty is coming, but take care of yourself and take care of each other. Find love, find that thing that opens your heart, and spread it around. Spread it around. Right now, it's more important to be tending to your own awakening. There's more to say on that though. Do what you're called to do, and that's all you need to do, whatever you're called to do. So we're going to close out for today. Wishing you many, many blessings. Hi. Thank you. Thank you so much. I love you guys too. I'll talk to you soon. And that's it. I'll see you next week. All right.